back to Piers Morgan Uncensored. This show is nothing if not a fearless forum for fiery debate. I have strong opinions, but like all the world's eminent thinkers, I'm open to changing my mind. So tonight I'm trying something a little new. Prove me wrong is the title of his new segment. First up, is the royal family worth the money? The annual Crown report into royal finances was released today. King Charles and co appear to have maxed out the royal credit card. Last year they spent £107 million, while the sovereign grant was only £86.3 million. That means we're in the hole for around £20.7 million extra. Big numbers, indisputably. But in my view, the royal family still represents stunningly good value. I say they're worth every penny. We're here to debate the complete opposite. Alex O'Connor, the YouTuber, royal skeptic, and Graham Smith, chief executive of the UK's leading Republican movement, Republic, who's just handed me his new book, Abolish the Monarchy, Why We Should and How We Will. So, clear we're on different paths here, but the rules are simple. You guys have until you hear this sound to prove me wrong. I say the royals are worth every penny that this country gives them, which, by the way, is literally 1 penny per person in this country per year. Per day. Per day, not a year. So it's a penny a day per person in the country.
Well, it's not. And the first thing to say about this debate is that the monarchy is not a financial transaction. So whether makes a profit or not is neither here nor there. The measure of whether it's a good institution and worth keeping is whether it's good constitutionally, because that's what it's there for.
Why are you so against it, out of interest?
Well, because firstly,
the whole life is devoted to ending the monarchy.
Firstly, it's wrong in principle. It's not democratic. It stands on completely different set of feudal values instead of the values of accountability, equality and democratic rights and so on. Secondly, as an institution, it is not fit for purpose. It falls well short of the principles of public life. I don't think it's going too far to say it's corrupt. And constitutionally, in terms of our politics and the way power is exercised, it funnels a lot of power.
What have been the 4 most watched events globally involving this country in the last 3 years?
Yeah, but that doesn't...
No, hang on.
Well, you're going to say the weddings and the Jubilees.
Just answer my question.
You're going to say the weddings and the Jubilees. I'm not sure that's even the case, because I think UEFA had...
well, forget football.
Well, OK, you can't just say forget football.
Well, national events... National events which universally show this country
the coronation,
at its best.
9% of this country were enthusiastic about the coronation, 15% by another poll. So, in terms of royalists, most people... people that you can genuinely call royalists is less than 15%.
All right, but see, here's the point, I think, which I think both you guys are missing. But, I mean, try and convince me, Alex. I just think when the world looked at the Platinum Jubilee, for example, when the world looked in a very different tone at the Queen's funeral, the King's coronation, you look at these events and it shows Britain, in my view, at its greatest. The pomp, the pageantry, the ceremony, the military precision. Everything worked like clockwork. Everyone around the world who was watching this, and as a caveat, many people are not interested, I get that, but the millions, tens of millions around the world that watched it thought better of our country. How many things have happened in our country in the last 3 years involving our leaders, for example, which have brought shame and ignominy to the country? Here, you have a chance to show us at our best. What price do you put on that?
There's nothing about the royal family that's brought us shame, in your opinion, that you've been sort of
loads of things.
Relentlessly
as
talking
human
about.
beings,
The idea that the monarchy sits above the politics
they are as
of the
fragile
country,
as any of us.
And you say, it doesn't help us to escape the various political scandals of prime ministers and presidents. Well, does it? I thought you were the one who's constantly banging on about Harry and Meghan and how they're a disgrace to our country or whatever it is. I don't think.
Well, I think rather like you two, their attempts to damage the monarchy and bring it down are actually disgraceful, because I happen to support the monarchy. But that's a different argument.
A few big events is not an argument for a constitution which is second-rate. It's not an argument for an institution that abuses public money, that abuses public office to lobby for their interests and so on. I mean, 14 years ago now, the MP's expenses scandal. I'm sure you were one of the many commentators who are outraged by MPs spending public money on their own homes, their second homes.
Yeah.
And that was sort of hundreds of pounds, thousands of pounds, sometimes tens of thousands of pounds. The royals spend millions, tens of millions.
Yeah, but my view of that
is money.
If you're going to have a monarchy and a royal family, and they're performing over 1,000 duties a year,
like garden
which
parties.
is not a lot.
Well, they're actually getting lots of charities and they do a lot of help for people,
which
right?
they couldn't do as private citizens.
They could, but it wouldn't have the same impact.
Okay.
But here's my point. If you're going to have them, you should give them all the trappings.
Why?
Of a
Why?
Because
Where's
otherwise
the-
they're not a royal family.
where's the
They're
logic?
not a monarchy.
Where's the logic?
The logic is, if you want
we-
people to buy into the magic of a monarchy and royal family,
but it's not-
you've got to give them the tools to be
nobody does
magical.
anymore.
It's not
Nobody
magic,
does
it's
this anymore.
corruption.
What would you have them in? A little Tesla?
Maybe a suit. Would be fine. We could start by getting rid of these ridiculous garments. We spent most of the time that we've known
What,
now
dressed
King
like you?
Charles dressed like me.
I mean, come on.
And so to see him for the first time.
You're the king dressed like
see
you.
him-
No offence.
Well,
but-
he'd probably put on a tie. He'd look more like you, I suppose.
Yes.
To see him
Exactly.
suddenly put on these robes would be like watching Rishi Sunak or someone suddenly
But it's
don
part
these
of our history.
ludicrous
And actually,
robes,
it gives
but
us
holding
something,
an orb.
it gives us something
It's
so few other countries in the
absolutely
world
ridiculous.
have.
Nobody can take it seriously.
And you may not like
Nobody
it, you
can take it
two,
seriously
but
anymore.
many around the world love it. If you go to the Caribbean, if you go to America, you go to Canada,
many
you go
people-
to India, you go anywhere in the world, Australia, and they bring in
just love
so
monarchy,
much money
yeah.
from tourism.
Well, that's not true.
India
It is
loves the
true.
No,
monarchy,
it isn't. That's
Caribbean
definitely
loves
not.
It is
monarchy.
true.
It's definitely not true. Now, the thing is, there is no evidence. And I've sat down with the CEO and chair of Visit Britain about a decade ago, and I said, there's no evidence that if we got rid of the monarchy, tourism would go down. And they said, yes, you're absolutely
You don't
right.
think the royal family brings in any money
There
from
is
tourism?
no evidence that that tourism money wouldn't come in anyway.
I mean, if
because
you,
people
just,
like the
if
history.
you just look at the money that came in the weeks leading up to these big events that we've had over
No,
the last
if
4
you
years,
look at the
huge
visitor-
amounts of money
if you
came
look
in
at the visitor
from
numbers-
American tourists
No,
pouring
because the
in,
visitor numbers
Australian tourists,
the
Canadian
visitor numbers
tourists.
go down when these things happen. If you look at the visitor numbers, they go down when these
People
things
stay
happen.
away from these kind of things. And if I may say, Cheshire Zoo is a bigger tourist attraction in the UK than Buckingham Palace or Windsor Castle. I wouldn't be in favour of a state-funded ceremonial opening
When was the last time
of this new
hundreds of millions
chimpanzee
of people
exhibit.
around the world on television
I certainly would
watch
not be
the
in
birth
favour.
of a penguin at Chester Zoo?
I certainly would not be in
Right?
favour
They don't, do they?
of its owners or its directors, or indeed the sort of sometimes sinister and yet still to be pitied animals that are kept within its cages, given any kind of political office over the rest of us.
When do we beam the lives of
The
the
whims of
inmates of
tourists,
Chester Zoo
the
to the
whims of
world?
tourists
Yes,
are
I mean,
not a
when's the
good
next-
justification for political office. The
When's
thing that
the
tourists are
next
spending
big
money on
event? I mean,
is not
when's
the way
that?
to decide
What
who the head of
about,
state's
what
going to
about William's campaign at the moment to end homelessness?
be. Yeah, fantastic. Funded by what?
Funded by us?
And what's this, like £3 million?
It's £3 million
pounds?
You say you don't like his campaign against homelessness?
I think it's
performative.
wonderful.
What have you got
It's
against the
nothing-
homeless?
It's nothing he couldn't do
Huh?
as a private citizen.
We give him
What is-
£22 million.
What do you have against the homeless?
What is it?
We give him £22 million. We
Yes.
could spend that on.
You don't want him to help the
That's
homeless?
the most ludicrous thing you've said on this show, and that says a lot.
The bar is low, I agree.
To say that this is something that requires royalty, to say that this is something that requires he has some kind of political office, that he's going to inherit the head of statehood, that he's going to become the head of state of this country, that's got anything to do with his ability
here's my
to
thing.
give £3 million to charity.
I like talking to you
is
guys, right? You
ridiculous.
guys, you argue your case with great passion, but in the end, it's just a negative anti-argument.
No, it's not.
That's what you are.
Not at all.
The pair of you wake up
case-
every day and you think, how do I end this thing I hate? Why don't you just ignore it? It's a bit like vegan. I'll tell you what it is. We're having a vegan debate in a minute. It's a bit like vegans who run into steakhouses screaming abuse about
Well, no,
the meat.
it's a bit
If
like-
you don't like
it's a
meat,
bit like-
go and eat
it's a
your
bit-
gruel
it's a
in a
bit
little
like-
restaurant in the corner.
It's a bit like saying...
Leave me to eat my steak.
It's actually a bit like getting up in the morning and saying, I want to end homelessness because I hate it. I want to end the monarchy
Quite right.
because it is a bad thing. It's bad for Britain. It's bad for our governance.
bad for Britain.
It's bad for our governance.
And also,
It's
for what
not
it's
bad
worth,
for
our image.
two out of
It's
the three
bad.
It's
times...
purely ceremonial when it comes to
Two out of the three times that I've
But the
ever spoken about
ceremony,
this subject,
the pomp, the
and because you've
pageantry-
invited me to. Those are two of the three times that I've ever spoken about the subject in public.
Yeah.
It's because you've invited me to. So I don't think it's me who's banging on about this. It's not me who's waking up every day just desperate to see the
Every
end
time
of the
we
monarchy.
call you,
You're the one
every
who-
time we call you, your answering machine says, if that's Piers, I'll do it. So don't blame me. The klaxon's gone. The big question, have you... I think we know where this is going on the first one, but have you proven me wrong? No.
Yes.
You haven't.
Have we convinced you?
haven't.
Is another question.
You haven't. The thing is,
Read my book and then come back to me later.
I will read your book, but I've got a pretty good idea what's in it because it's got Owen Jones quoted on the front saying a crucial, riveting polemic. And what Owen Jones knows about crucial, riveting polemics can be written on a postage stamp which
judge it
has
for yourself. You're
the
quoted
king,
in it.
which has the King of the United Kingdom's head on it, by the way, not Owen Jones's. Gentlemen,
And God save him.
a good well.
Nobody
indeed.
else is going to in this country.
Yes, they will. It's a lot more royal fans than you think. Gentlemen, good to see you.
Thank you.
Your campaign will fail, but it will fail with passion, and I admire that.
I'll bet you a tenner.
OK. Is that £10 with King Charles's picture on it? Yes, it is.